Real horror stories that actually happened. Welcome to the world of darkness and horror, where reality surpasses fiction, and the truth is more terrifying than any story we can imagine. In this video, we will tell you 3 true stories, experienced by real people who lived through unforgettable moments. Get ready to dive into a world of mystery and fear, and stay until the end. These stories will make your heart race. Let's begin. Story 1: The Night Visitor. Our first story takes place on a quiet night with a young man named Kareem, who lived alone in a small apartment in the city. That night, after a long day at work, Kareem decided to go to bed early. But what happened next was a real nightmare. In the middle of the night, Kareem suddenly woke up to the sound of slow footsteps coming from the living room. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, but then he heard his bedroom door slowly creaking open. He froze in place, and all he could hear was the heavy breathing of someone behind him. He tried to turn around to see what was happening but found nothing. The next night, the same thing happened, but this time he saw a dark shadow standing at his bedroom door, staring at him. The shadow wasn't of anyone familiar, and it wasn't just a figment of his imagination. Kareem tried speaking to the shadow, but it disappeared as soon as he approached it. After these terrifying nights, Kareem discovered from the neighbors that the apartment had been previously occupied by an old man who died alone there. Since then, no one had been able to live in the apartment for long because of these eerie nightly visits. Story 2: The Game That Never Ended. The second story is about a little girl named Nada who lived with her family in an old house they inherited from her grandmother. One day, Nada found an old doll in the storage room. When she asked her mother about it, she was told it belonged to her grandmother when she was young. At first glance, the doll seemed ordinary, but Nada noticed that its eyes followed her wherever she went. One night, Nada placed the doll on a shelf in her room and went to sleep. She woke up in the middle of the night to a faint whisper coming from the shelf. When she turned on the lights, she found the doll on her bed, as if it had crawled there on its own. She tried to return it to the shelf, but each time, she would find it in a different spot, as if it was following her. As days passed, Nada started seeing the doll move clearly in front of her. One time, when she was home alone, she heard faint giggles, and when she entered the room, she found the doll sitting on the floor, facing her as if it was smiling mockingly. After investigating, the family discovered that the doll originally belonged to a distant relative of her grandmother who died at a young age and was said to have had a strange attachment to the doll. The family disposed of the doll after these incidents, but Nada never forgot those haunting eyes that seemed to follow her everywhere. Story 3: The Abandoned Road. Our last story revolves around a young man named Sama, who was driving on a deserted rural road at night. The road was dark, and there was hardly any traffic. As Sama drove, he noticed a woman dressed in white standing alone on the side of the road, signaling him to stop. Driven by curiosity and fear, he pulled over and asked if she needed help. The woman, speaking in a calm yet eerie voice, told him she was lost and needed a ride home. Sama agreed and let her into the car, but throughout the ride, she sat in complete silence. When he asked for her address, she would respond with vague and unclear answers. As they approached an isolated area, she told him to stop in front of an old, abandoned house. She got out without saying a word and vanished into the darkness. Feeling uneasy, Sama quickly drove away. The next day, when he recounted the story to a friend from the same area, he learned that the woman he described matched the appearance of a woman who had died years earlier in a car accident on that very road. Since that night, Sama swore never to drive that road at night again, realizing he had given a ride to a passenger from another world. These were 3 true horror stories that remind us that fear can be closer than we think and that some things in this world cannot be easily explained. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell for more. Let us know in the comments if you've experienced anything similar. see you in upcoming videos with more horror. Keep calm, for tonight might be your turn.